Welcome back on Will Gow. We're completing our part 3 of our interview with Finbar O'Sullivan in South Okanagan as we make our way to the 7,000-foot level of the Beaconsfield mountain range. Finbar, tell her we're close to. I know we're close to your place, but where are we heading right now?
Right now, we're going to head to the top of Mount Riordan, and I think it's time that Will just got out of his comfort zone a bit. So I'm going to go a little different way today.
What do you mean?
Will,
what do you mean comfort zone?
Hang on to your britches here, buddy.
I can't.
No?
You get my seatbelt so freaking tight I can't breathe.
That's good. See if we can make it up this way. This is a way of rarely go, so. But I think it's one of those things that we need a challenge, don't we?
We always need the challenge.
We always need a challenge. Keeps us young.
So tell me, when we're doing the Overland right now, tell me a bit about your experience and also your passion for Overland.
How did I get it? I always start. How did I get into it? Well, I've lived my life in the outdoors, and one of the bad things about getting older is that we start to fall apart. And one of the reasons I got into four-wheel driving, you could get me into a lot of areas, and it would actually cut down a lot on my walking and hiking and things like that. And I could get in and carry on doing the things which I love doing and have spent my life doing. You know, I've spent my life in the outdoors and loving the outdoors. But I really got into four-wheel driving, and I'm actually working towards becoming an instructor to teach four-wheel driving.
Now, tell me a bit about, we're going to check the outside, but tell me a bit about some of the equipment you have in the Jeep right now.
Oh, man. In my Jeep. Well, first of all, we need to understand what Jeep stands for. So Jeep stands for just empty every pocket. Okay, well, because that's one of the things you got to remember is, yeah, I did it to save me and save my knees and save my body. But I have to say, you have to spend a lot of money to save your knees and save your body.
So I'm assuming you got two-way radio in here? Or?
I have everything. The only thing I don't have is a built-in dishwasher.
Okay, what do you...
So what I'm doing right now is front axle. So it's a four-wheel drive vehicle, and what it is, my Jeep is set up that I can lock my axles. So I can lock my rear axle, or I can lock my front axle, or I can lock both my axles. So if I'm on steep terrain or where I need lots of traction, I will lock one axle or both axles. So coming up that section we did was actually very, very steep, and I want to make sure it's not the place that I'd want to slip in. I don't want to I don't want to spin out, and I want to make sure that I can keep climbing. So the advantage of this and the switches you saw me work were just switches that work and lock my axles individually. The environmental standards we have now take a long time to service like that. That's how my leg got so big. It was actually to put up there at the very top of the mountain. Everybody knows Headley, and Headley's famous. You know, there's a really cool museum in Headley. If you get the opportunity to go past it, perfect. So we talked about, you know, as we get older, how we can enjoy things, and here's the beauty of it. You know, it's you can invest. You know, people seem to give everybody a hard time about stuff like this with engines and back into the environment, but you know, I'm at the stage where my knees are really taking a beating, Will. And really, if it wasn't for my 4x4, I wonder how far and how often I would get to places like this. Well, and let's be realistic, this is about as beautiful as it gets, isn't it?
And there's a lot of places in the world like that you'll still be able to get to with your 4x4. You know, and sometimes I want to be some of those adventures with you. It'll be fun.
It is.
And be able to share this, because unless you had that 4x4, we couldn't have shared this with people, you know, outside the Okanagan Valley. I mean, people talk about Banff and they talk about Jasper, but there's some beautiful spots And again, how high are we?
Well, just about 7,000 feet here, actually, just under.
Amazing.
Actually, if I look across the Apex Mountain, across there, that's at 7,200 feet. So we're not that far from there, are we?
No, great experience today, Finbar. This has been really good.
Nice to get out, eh?
Yeah.
From the NickelPlate mine, we're actually following the original mining road. Put in the 30s. I love driving this road. Because you gotta drive it. I've got to show you why.
There you go. Did you say we're heading into the Similkameen Valley?
Yep. You look across, that's the Similkameen Valley. To the right we have Princeton, to the left, or Headley. To the left we've got Caribbean.
Have they ever found any other small settlements up here? Any other cabins located up here?
Well, there's a long history. There's a long history of mining up here. There's a long history of people even trapping. But really, gold is really what made this area. This area was famous for its gold. World famous for its gold, actually.
Is that a straight drop off?
Yep.
Okay. Now you got me. How far down are we talking?
1,000.
So who would go first, you or me?
I'm driving, so. Did I tell you your ex-wife had a really good insurance policy on you, Bob?
I forgot about that one.
I'm going to take you for a really nice look out. Just wait to lean over the edge of it.
I just read it. It says no dumping.
Okay.
As we continue our trip through the backcountry, Finbar is taking us to a relatively unknown cemetery called NickelPlate from the old mining days in the late 1900s and early 20th century. It'll be interesting to see what the history is. And Finbar has an extensive knowledge of the area, and it'll be great for you to hear his Finbar, the place we stopped by, you mentioned there was not really named the cemetery, but pretty close to called NickelPlate. So you just tell me a quick background of the history here.
A little bit about the history in this one, and actually one of the things I'm glad to say is that somebody who I don't know, and I don't think anybody does, has come up here and done a whole pile of work and actually rebuilt some of the graves and actually fenced them off. The history of the area is actually quite cool, and the history of this area is actually old. They've actually been pulling gold out of here since 1904. The first brick of gold came out of here, apparently, under the Daily Production Company. But the NickelPlate mine, which was the upper section of the mine, was the Headley mascot and the NickelPlate. The upper mine had several families that actually lived here, and there's a cool history that goes with it. So once upon a time there was a whole pile of Chinese workers who were buried here. One of the things that happened is that in the 50s the Chinese tongs or groups came over and they actually dug up the Chinese bones and took them back to China to repatriate the people who passed away here. These were working people. Well, there were people who worked here in the mines. The other thing is, if you notice, there's big graves and small graves. The small graves are of children. Apparently in the 50s there was a diphtheria epidemic that came through here. And of course there was always the Spanish flu in 1918 and 1919. I think the Spanish flu came through this area of the Okanagan. I'm not so sure if any of these graves are actually from there, but Headley, I know there was 22 people passed away in Headley during the Spanish flu epidemic. I know one of the graves was of a stillborn child of a family that was up here. A guy called Cox wrote a really, really good history of this area. And he talked to one or two of the miners, and he actually named the families. The sad part about it is that, have you noticed the graves have no names on them?
There's no names at all. I mean, I've been looking for
there is
some sort of headstones.
I found the names of 5 of them. And of course there is no headstones. All we know is that there's people buried here. Very serene little spot, but somebody has actually done a lot of work here.
But again, there's been, from what you could tell, there's been no surveys to see if there's any other burial.
Nah, just I think again a part of this history, like a lot of BC history, was lost. And somebody's gone out of the way to make sure that this piece of history isn't lost, eh? And I really like that.
But you're right, this is a very peaceful area right now. And the road that we're on right now is?
That is, well, it's called Apex Main or NickelPlate Main. So this was a road that actually came from Penticton, came up past Apex Mountain, and now is leading on to the gold mine, to what was the NickelPlate gold mine. This road actually goes all the way down to Headley, and it was one of the main roads here for many, many years. This road was actually the road to the mine from Headley. We'll see it. There's a real cool piece of history there, where the road actually came up and was pushed in 1937, and it's one of my favourite driving roads, especially in a Jeep 4x4. So
when we continue, where are we heading off to right now?
What it is, we're going to head towards. We're going to drive past the Barrack Gold Mine, which was the old NickelPlate mine, and we're going to move down into the road that actually leads down to St. Mary's Church. But I love it because it's got this overview on it, and you can actually see the whole of the Cemetary Valley. And I tell you what, we're going to save it, and we're going to. You tell me if this isn't one of the nicest views in the Okanagan.
This is our view of the Okanagan Cemetary Valley. That was the end of our trip. We hope some of you get to see that one day. We say goodbye to Finbar's constant companion. And thank you for watching today. As another note, Finbar's Jeep Piglet was named by his Jeep group. They're the ones that actually named it for him. So thank you for watching, and I hope you watch our other videos. Let the adventure find you. Well, we made it to the 7,000 foot level, and look at the view of the Okanagan Cemetary Valley below. Unbelievable. As you leave you today, I'll leave you with Finbar's companion, and also with his Jeep Piglet. Now, quick note, Piglet was named from his Jeep group. They named it for him. We hope you enjoyed this today. Have a great adventure.